Top 10 vintage tractors still working today. They were built before the moon landing, before color television, before most people alive today had taken their first breath. And yet, these machines are still working. Across fields soaked in a century of rain, tractors forged in the ashes of war and depression continue to roll. Some start with a crank, others with a flame. But all share one thing: they never stop doing what they were made for. From American giants that fed the nation during its most brutal winters, to Eastern European workhorses that powered villages through Reconstruction, these aren't museum pieces. They're survivors, still plowing, still pulling, and still earning their keep, 1 acre at a time. Don't forget to press and hold that like button, leave a comment, and hit subscribe before we begin. Ranked 10th. Allis-Chalmers Model B, the Depression-era workhorse that refused to die. Released in the late 1930s, the Allis-Chalmers Model B marked a quiet turning point in American farm life. Designed during the tail end of the Great Depression, this small-frame tractor offered more than just mobility. It brought independence to farmers who worked small parcels of land with limited means. Weighing just over 2,000 pounds and delivering 17 horsepower, the Model B was modest by modern standards, but its proportions were precisely what made it indispensable. Its lightweight design allowed for delicate maneuvering between narrow crop rows, and its 4-speed gearbox proved versatile enough for tasks such as plowing, harrowing, or towing. The Model B fit the realities of modest family farms scattered across the Midwest and Southern Plains. It didn't dominate the field, it worked alongside it. Parts were easy to replace, repairs could be done in minutes, and its Continental engine was known to start after months of idle cold. Today, long past the brand's dissolution, the Model B is still earning its keep on American soil. From orchard paths in Georgia to hayfields in Iowa, countless examples remain in active service. Not restored for display, but trusted for the task at hand. Many are operated by 3rd or 4th generation owners who have never seen a reason to trade them in. Its continued presence is less about nostalgia and more about engineering that matched its moment in history. The Model B endures not because of its size or innovation, but because it was built to address a specific need, and it did so effectively. Ranked 9th. Fordson Model F, the machine that put horses out of work. By the time Europe emerged from the wreckage of the First World War, a new kind of horsepower was quietly reshaping entire nations. Leading that shift wasn't a war machine, but a low-slung steel frame on metal wheels, the Fordson Model F. Introduced in 1917, it was the world's first affordable, mass-produced tractor. Built by Henry Ford's team during an era when horses still dominated agriculture, the Model F carried a simple mission: mechanize farming at a scale that even the poorest landowners could reach. Assembly line production meant cost savings, and those savings were intended to be accessible. In just a few years, the Fordson replaced teams of draft horses on tens of thousands of farms across America, the UK, and later the Soviet Union. The machine wasn't elegant. Early models featured worm gear steering, steel-cleated wheels, and kerosene-fueled engines that rumbled more than roared. The seating was little more than a metal plate bolted over a hot differential, but what it lacked in comfort, it delivered in force. Reliable, rugged performance on terrain that broke horses and men alike. A century later, relics of this industrial breakthrough are still active. Some have been restored, others never stopped running. On private land in Kansas, in fields behind barns in Somerset, or pulling loads in Romanian villages. Model Fs can still be found idling under their power, just as they did before radio was standard in homes. The Fordson didn't survive by accident. Its legacy lives on in its simplicity. No digital interface, no sensors. It is a direct mechanical connection between the operator, the engine, and the earth. A century-old tool, still doing the work it was born for, one furrow at a time. Ranked 8th. Fendt Dieselross F18, the steel-bodied mule of Bavarian hills. In the foothills of post-war Bavaria, where the fields curved steep and narrow between dense pine forests, a small diesel tractor once carved its reputation, not through force, but through sheer mechanical stubbornness. Its name is Dieselross F18. In German, Dieselross. Built between 1938 and 1958, the Fendt Dieselross F18 was no showpiece. Compact, wide-geared, and relentlessly utilitarian, it offered a solution to farmers in mountainous terrain, where oxen were slow and roads were rare. The two-cylinder diesel engine delivered just over 16 horsepower, but its gear ratios made it feel twice as strong. Cold starts were handled with a hand crank or preheating torch, crude by modern standards but brutally effective. Where it shined was traction, with rear steel cleats biting into the mud in steep gradients and a center of gravity impossibly low. The Dieselross could climb vineyard slopes and timber trails that modern four-wheel tractors wouldn't dare attempt. Its mechanical clutch, belt pulley, and PTO systems made it more than a field tractor. It powered mills, saws, and generators in rural villages for decades. Many of these machines never left their place of origin. Today, several hundred F-18s remain in working condition, tucked in barns across southern Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. Some are painted fresh green and polished for vintage shows. Others, caked in oil and mud, still haul wood, plow winter gardens, or tow hay trailers on farms passed down through bloodlines. The Dieselross didn't chase innovation, it embodied survival. Built during wartime, refined during the famine, and engineered to last through both. In silence and soot, it helped rebuild post-war Europe, one slope at a time. Ranked 7th. John Deere Model A, the two-cylinder rhythm of the American heartland. Across the cornfields of Iowa and the wheat plains of Kansas, there's a sound still familiar to the old hands. A steady, syncopated chug that rolls over the soil like a heartbeat. It comes from two horizontally opposed cylinders, firing in a rhythm unlike anything else in agriculture. That sound belongs to the John Deere Model A. Introduced in 1934, the Model A was the company's first true row crop tractor, reshaping how American farmers worked the land. Its narrow front axle allowed for tight turns between crops, while its long wheelbase provided unexpected stability. But what truly set it apart was its engine, a two-cylinder power unit that ran slowly, pulled hard, and made a sound so distinctive that farmers gave it a nickname, Johnny Popper. Built during the transition from horse-drawn implements to complete mechanization, the Model A found itself at the center of mid-20th century farming. It could plow, plant, cultivate, and pull, all on a single tank of fuel. For many families, it wasn't just equipment. It was the first machine that truly changed what one man could do in a day. And somehow, decades later, it's still earning its place. Across barns and back lots, thousands of Model A tractors remain in use. Not because they're rare, not because they're valuable, but because they still start, still pull, still run. Some have had their paint faded by 60 summers. Others have been rebuilt, repainted, and retrofitted. But the core remains the same, a simple, reliable machine with a rhythm the land seems to recognize. To hear a Model A at idle is to listen to a piece of American history still working, not in museums, but under open sky. Ranked 6th, Massey Harris 44, the post-war workhorse that outran its era. When North America returned to its fields after World War II, farms needed power, fast. The soil had waited, the markets had changed, and the machinery had to catch up. Massey Harris answered with the 44. Released in 1946, this Canadian-built tractor arrived as one of the most advanced row crop machines of its day. It came standard with a Continental six-cylinder engine, producing around 44 horsepower, a number high enough that the model was named after it. Farmers welcomed the torque, but what made the 44 valuable wasn't just power, it was versatility. With optional gas, diesel, and even LP gas variants, the Massey Harris 44 adapted to the fuel realities of post-war farming. Its wide wheel stance, dual hydraulics, and live PTO made it equally effective for pulling, plowing, mowing, and lifting. No single specialty, just strong, consistent performance across every task the land demanded. More than 90,000 units rolled off the line between 1946 and 1955. Many were sold in the prairie provinces of Canada and across the upper Midwest of the United States. In these regions, the 44 quickly became a staple, often running daily for 2 or 3 decades before even being considered for retirement. That retirement for many never came. Today, across Saskatchewan wheat belts and Ohio cornfields, Massey 44s are still being used, not restored and not repainted, simply running, with original engines and frames, sometimes on third clutches, fifth sets of rear tires, and an oil pan that's never been dry. Ranked 5th, Zetor 25, the iron pulse of post-war Czechoslovakia. In the smoke and silence that followed 1945, rebuilding came not from speeches but from steel. While cities cleared rubble and borders shifted, the countryside had its reckoning: how to till, plant, and harvest without horses or fuel, with soil hardened by both frost and fire. From a modest factory floor in Brno, a solution emerged, one forged more from necessity than ambition: the Zetor 25. This was no luxury tractor. Boxy, underpainted, and louder than its Western counterparts, the Zetor 25 was designed for function first and foremost. Its 2-cylinder diesel engine, air-cooled and crank-started, ran rough but ran long. The gearbox, cut from thick Czech steel, could take abuse for decades. Its weight-to-traction ratio made it ideal for the mixed terrain of Eastern Europe, from loam to clay, from flatland to forest. More than 158,000 units were produced, and not all of them stayed behind the Iron Curtain. Many found their way westward, smuggled across borders by collectors, mechanics, and exiles who knew the machine's capabilities. Others went south into Yugoslavia and Greece, where they labored in olive groves and vineyard terraces until the century turned. Today, the Zetor 25 still breathes, slowly, stubbornly, in dozens of countries around the world. In Slovakia, it pulls apple carts through hills older than the empire. In northern Italy, one serves as both a tractor and a village mascot. In the rural Midwest of the United States, a handful of people continue to work small farms, their names stenciled in Cyrillic on faded metal hoods. No decals, no chrome, no heritage marketing. Just a thick pulse of iron and diesel, echoing a time when machines didn't just symbolize recovery, they delivered it. They remain because they don't interfere with others. No electronic sensors are used. No diagnostics. Just mechanical linkages, cast iron weight, and a design that knew when to stay out of the operator's way. On modern farms, the Massey Harris 44 may no longer be in the spotlight, but it hasn't left the stage. It's still pulling its weight long after the spotlight moved on. Ranked 4th, Oliver 70 row crop, the green arrow that fed a generation. In the flatlands of the Great Plains, where the wind comes without warning and the soil rolls like a sea of wheat, there used to be a saying, if it's green and it sings when it works, it's an Oliver. The Oliver 70 row crop first hit the fields in 1935, but it didn't just arrive, it announced itself. Streamlined bodywork, sweeping curves, vertical grill bars polished like chrome. This was the first tractor that looked fast even while standing still. Farmers called it the Green Arrow, and not just for the paint. It moved cleanly between rows, sharp in its turns, and lighter on the land than its rivals. Under the hood sat a 6-cylinder engine that ran smoother than most trucks of its time. Unlike its contemporaries, the 70 offered electric start and headlights as factory options. A bold step in a world still lit by kerosene lamps and morning frost. With PTO, belt pulley, and hydraulics, it was more than a field tractor. It was a complete working platform for the American farm. The Oliver 70 didn't just plow, it cultivated, harvested, and powered mills, pumps, and threshers. It kept food on tables during the tail end of the Dust Bowl and carried families into the post-war boom. Its frame, though narrow and balanced, could take years of punishment without bending. Its gearbox was firm, the clutch light, and the steering tight, like something designed by someone who drove it. Many were passed from father to son, and then again to grandson, and some never left the farm at all. Even now, the sound of that engine, higher pitched than a Deere, steadier than a Ford, still echoes across barns and backfields in Ohio, Missouri, and Nebraska. Restored or not, shiny or rust-flecked, They're still working row crops, cutting hay and pulling kids in parade wagons on county fair weekends. In the long memory of American machinery, the Oliver 70 holds a place not just for what it did, but for how confidently it did it. A tractor with posture, one that looked you straight in the eye and got the job done before sundown. Ranked third, Lanz Bulldog D9506, the one-cylinder thunder that refused to fade. A single piston, nearly 11 liters in volume, no radiator, no ignition spark, just one iron cylinder, fired by flame and pressure, and an unmistakable sound that once echoed across post-war Germany like thunder rolling through valley farms. This was the Lanz Bulldog D9506, a machine built not for speed but for permanence. Produced between 1936 and 1955 in Mannheim, the D9506 stood apart from every other tractor of its era. Where others ran on multi-cylinder precision, the Bulldog embraced brute force. Its hot bulb engine required an open flame to preheat the cylinder head, a slow ritual of smoke, patience, and timing. When the starter crank finally turned the massive flywheel, the engine kicked to life in a deep, deliberate rhythm, one explosion at a time. Each revolution sent shock waves through the chassis. Operators had to brace themselves when engaging the clutch. Yet the machine never wavered. With over 45 horsepower and a torque curve designed for low-end grunts, the D9506 pulled steel plows through clay-heavy fields without complaint. Its simplicity was its weapon. Few moving parts, minimal electronics, and a body cast for longevity rather than elegance. Long after the war, these tractors continued to serve in Germany, Austria, and Eastern Europe. Their parts could be hammered back into shape. Their engines, if flooded or cracked, could be restored with a torch in time. And their presence, that towering flywheel, the vertical exhaust, the squared hood, turned heads on every dirt road. Today, nearly 70 years later, the Lanz Bulldog D9506 continues to run, not in isolation, but in motion. Some carry logs in the Bavarian Alps. Others pull grain trailers on farms too stubborn or too proud to replace them. And a few, still in original paint, perform each season at antique tractor runs, drawing crowds not with polish, but with the sheer rhythm of their mechanical breath. In the world of vintage farm machinery, few engines speak so loudly with so few parts. The Lanz Bulldog doesn't hum, doesn't whisper. It declares itself, one combustion at a time. Ranked second, International Harvester Farmall H, the tractor that carried America forward. There was a time in American history when survival meant precision, and progress was measured in acres turned by dusk. Between dust storms and ration books, families leaned not on slogans, but on steel, and few machines became as trusted as the Farmall H. Built by International Harvester from 1939 to 1953, the Farmall H was never flashy. It didn't need to be. It earned its reputation row by row, harvest by harvest. With a four-cylinder engine producing around 25 horsepower, it was neither the most powerful nor the most compact. Still, it was balanced, perfectly so, for the kind of work that filled every season: plowing, planting, cultivating, and hauling. The H introduced hydraulics to small and mid-sized farms, a breakthrough that meant faster lifts, cleaner rows, and fewer broken backs. Its narrow front wheel design made it ideal for row crops, and its modular construction allowed repairs to be done quickly, even on site, with minimal tools. Nearly 400,000 units were sold, making it one of the most widely used tractors in American history. But the numbers only tell part of the story. Across Ohio, Nebraska, and the Carolinas, generations remember the H not just as a tool, but as a presence. The red iron giant that was always there when the work began and still idling when the light ran out. Today, the Farmall H hasn't disappeared. It's become harder to avoid. Still working side lots, still cutting hayfields, still starting up with a turn of the crank. It's found not in collector garages, but in the lives of those who refuse to replace what still works. The Farmall H didn't chase innovation. It supported a country that was learning how to recover, slowly, steadily, and together. In first place, John Deere Model D, the first, the longest, the last to quit. It began not with a revolution, but with a low, deliberate rumble. Two cylinders breathing in rhythm with the earth. In 1923, when horses still outnumbered horsepower, John Deere unveiled the Model D. It wasn't just a machine, it was a declaration of a new era, the company's first ever production tractor, and the first to wear the now iconic green and yellow livery and iron. For 30 years, it led the line, the longest production run of any John Deere model in history. 3 decades of toil across rain-hardened Midwest clay, sun-cracked Texas dust, and the frost-bitten plains of Saskatchewan. The Model D didn't evolve by trend, it adapted by necessity. Larger flywheels, pressed steel frames, pneumatic tires replacing iron lugs. Each update earned, not engineered in abstraction, but from the field up. Its twin-cylinder horizontal engine, affectionately dubbed the hit and miss, produced a low-end torque so steady it could pull a plow through sod that stopped heavier machines cold. The gearbox was unyielding but straightforward. Fuel options ranged from gasoline to kerosene, whatever kept the fire going. And once the hand crank brought the engine to life, that fire seldom went out. Even now, a century from its debut, the Model D can be found at work. In Nebraska, one hauls water tanks during dry summers. In Minnesota, another family tills a plot passed down for 4 generations. In Alberta, they say an original 1926 model still starts each spring with 2 pulls and a puff of blue smoke. These aren't restorations parked under banners. Their tools were still trusted to do what they were built for. Move the land forward. What makes the John Deere Model D endure isn't nostalgia. It's utility, distilled to its most honest form. No electronics, no pretense, just cast iron, combustion, and continuity. A machine that never aspired to be legendary, it became that way by refusing to fade. The first, the longest, and for many the last to ever let them down. Even in a world chasing faster, bigger, and brighter, there are still machines that remind us of something simpler. Endurance. These tractors weren't designed to impress or to innovate for headlines. They were built to work, and somehow, nearly 100 seasons later, they still are. Across old fields and down forgotten roads, they keep moving, steady, slow, and without ceremony. If one of these machines still runs on your land or lives in the memory of someone who once drove it, you're part of something larger. Because history isn't always found in books or museums. Sometimes, it's found in the oil-stained seat of an old tractor, still doing what it was meant to do. Sometimes history doesn't sit still. It keeps moving, one gear at a time. Let us know which one resonates with you in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this.